Welcome to 2-Bit Encryption, the officially unofficial podcast for Mr. Robot on USA. I'm Jim.
I'm A.Ron.
And today we're talking about Season 4, Episode 2, titled Payment Required. If you've been following along with the development of HTML, you know, these are status codes. Payment required. Any takes on that this week?
There's a lot of talk about what price Elliott will have to pay, what cost.
He has to pay the Philip price.
What toll, emotional tolls, the tolls to and favors that he owes to Philip. I'm guessing that they're playing with that.
Okay.
And also eCoin hacking, you know.
Yeah, that's a pretty good guess. The price of a safety deposit box actually is too high.
It's too damn high.
Yeah,
to keep it open for 3 years.
All right, I'm just being an idiot. Let's get into what do you think of this episode?
So it's interesting. I was pretty peeved by the opening exposition. Pretty late in the game to just drop the whole new level of conspiracy on things, and also the fact of it is it's like it also didn't move the ball very far forward. Like it's still maddeningly refuses to talk about what White Rose is trying to do.
No follow-up questions from Elliott.
No, like she's got this $1 billion machine. What's its purpose? She's got this product she's shipping out of the Congo. What's it's doing? Like, you know, but whatever. After that, I thought the episode was pretty good. It was intriguing. It, I don't know. It did that one thing that I feel like a lot of fictional shows do, where whenever the children of a problematic parent have to confront their death, there's this pressure to kind of like, you know, put some kind of meaning or nuance onto it. And then when you got to the end of the episode, boy, I hope because I've read the interviews and the podcast, and Esmail's talking the game like this is all planned. This is all baked in from the beginning.
Yep.
And on rewatches, it's going to make like, you know, that kind of sixth sense. Like, of course, you know, Bruce Willis is a ghost, but you know, that and I have faith. You know,
I do too, man. I think
it's just so audacious.
Yeah.
The idea,
but I think he's going for something very big and very different from a lot of other shows. Maybe he can nail it. We'll see.
The fact that he could hide this third persona in plain sight from the beginning, from the very beginning, since season 1, if this actually does make connect back and no one has ever smoked it out, but it's obvious in retrospect, it might be one of the best television magic tricks I've ever seen played. You know, because there's been some curveballs here and there, but like one set from the very beginning and 4 years on, that's pretty rarefied air, Esmail.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It was definitely a bombshell he drops at the end of this.
The jail reveal was the sacrificial lamb that he had to put up there to make us feel smart and take the pressure off of the heavy lifting.
He's saying like the you know, this is one of the things the internet hasn't really like talked about yet, so.
No, he is setting the degree of difficulty for what he's trying to do is pretty high, and he's talking mad game. If he doesn't have this, that's why I'm saying, like, not only have I gotten a lot of confidence in Sam Esmail's storytelling over the last few years, I just think that there's no way he'd say this shit if he didn't have something to back it up.
Yeah, I would hope not. I think, you know, his storytelling is interesting. It's certainly his own flavor of storytelling, and I think there are some things I like about it and some things I don't. But it came about in an era where you had to look at the internet and how it was interacting with television and changing the way that people wrote television. And I think he's trying to play with that a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, and we'll talk about it when we get to some of the theories, because there are so many fucking theories. I don't know that I actually saw anybody talking about anything other than who's the other one.
Yeah.
There were a couple of things around the edges, but I think it could even be where this is camouflage for something else that's going on, because I didn't see anybody talking about what's in the safety deposit box. I haven't seen anybody talking about anything except for the big mystery.
Yeah, and there's definitely some ARG, these alternative or augmented reality games. Like this week, there's one involving the GPS locator software that Angela
Signal.
Darlene exchanges with Elliott. I saw some people like seeing like the first, like the preliminary steps of unwrapping that puzzle, but I don't know. Maybe in previous seasons the ARGs were very easy to beat. Like it seemed like in the day or two Reddit had it all figured out. This season it feels like it's harder. Like maybe they've gone too hard. Maybe it's like, are you aware of that like cryptographic puzzle that's outside the CIA headquarters? Like there's some kind of statue that's got like 6 different codes and only like 3 have been broken. There's still like 1 or 2. Maybe it's like one of those things where the ARGs are just way too hard to beat now, so people are focusing on the third personality. But that's the, I mean, obviously that's where you should focus your time on. I mean, that's the big reveal.
Yeah, to me, it's more interesting than the sort of Easter eggy ARG stuff they're doing.
Right, because
which is cool, but
no, it's super cool, and I'm glad
relevant.
they're doing it. But like, there's no way Sam is going to reveal through the game a plot point before he reveals it on film. There's no fucking way.
Maybe, who knows? Who knows? He's a quirky, eccentric guy.
He is a quirky and eccentric guy
when it comes to storytelling. Yeah, so maybe we should get into the episode here. You were talking about the opening kind of montage where Philip's delivering everything we need to know about the Deus group and Zhejiang, his involvement, and essentially his master plan, except for the details of his master plan, which is what we all want to fucking know, and Elliott doesn't bother to ask about it afterwards. I did like how they turned my flat screen television into an old like 80s television with that little border, and it looked so convincing. For a moment I was like, what are they doing here that is making this so convincing? It just looks really good.
This scene reminded me a lot of the architect laying it all out for Neo in the Matrix, and I feel like they played that kind of architect-y Matrix music in the background, but I couldn't verify that. But it reminded me of the same kind of like grainy standard def TV footage, and just the old white guy droning on about the master plan, and but still not answering any questions.
Right.
You're gonna have to go. You're gonna have to get to the Matrix 3 to get the answers for any of these, and they won't be satisfying. But I don't know. It's neat. Like the way they've reframed this, and this feels largely correct. Like that when I was growing up in the 90s, just felt like everything was possible. That like the things in Star Trek about having like some big cataclysmic World War III was never going to happen. The world's becoming a peaceful place. We've learned all of our lessons, and them reframing this as like that being the big sharks in the room, seeing that as a giant opportunity, that like nobody's in charge, everything's up for grabs, even borders can be rewritten. And how they formed this Deus Corp to consolidate control, manipulate events, and how the internet was a outreach of that, but we don't know the phase 3. Phase 1 was like the consolidation of power. Phase 2 was the internet and the manipulation of the populace. Stage 3 is question mark.
It's that mysterious $1 billion machine.
Yeah.
That they don't bother explaining.
Yeah.
Eventually we'll get an explanation.
Yeah.
But yeah, Philip lays all that out, and then he claims that Susan Jacobs was his E-Corp contact for Deus, but she's missing. We know she's dead. And he doesn't have another contact, and Elliott uses the death of his daughter to kind of convince him to do the right thing by getting the entire Deus group together in one place within 8 days, so that Elliott can presumably do something to them or something to their funds. And then when Philip leaves, Elliott decides to go find Susan Jacobs. The thing that I kept thinking during the scene is this is setting up the heist, right? This is the 12 people, gathering in the garage for Gone in 60 Seconds, talking about how they're going to get the cars.
This has felt very much like a heist movie.
Yeah, which I loved. It got me pumped. I was ready. I want to see how they're going to get everybody together, how they're going to hack the bank accounts and all that. I'm excited for it.
Yeah. It is not clear to me, though, why Elliott thinks if he robs... I'm on Philip's side. Like, I don't see how him robbing White Rose would stop her 8 days from the shipping of the project. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like White Rose at this stage is, like, beyond the money. She has so much control that, like, even if Elliott were to pull this off, like, what does that even mean? Like, how much money would he have to steal to stop the project at this point? With because she doesn't just have money, she also has all the information. She also has all the world leaders of industry kind of in her pocket.
And I wouldn't
like
think
he says
to
it's like standing and it's like trying to stop a speeding train by stepping in front of it. I don't know.
But I think Elliott's got something else up his sleeve, because hacking Cyprus National Bank is not going to require them all to be in the same room.
So
I mean,
having him,
even with switching cell phones every 5 days, I can't see how Elliott couldn't get around that. So there's got to be something else, right?
Yeah.
This is more akin to like the batteries in the buildings that are going to destroy the records. Like, getting them all in the same place is key, beyond, in my opinion, just getting their cell phone numbers.
Yeah. What did you think of the sight lines in this scene?
Man, Sam Esmail is fucking with us, because there's the final thing that Philip says as he walks out. He says one thing to Elliott, looks him right in his eyes, walks past him, turns to look apparently right in the eyes of Mr. Robot to say another thing, and then walk out of the room.
But it also works as he's just like turning his head to make a parting aside. Like he's not going to fully turn around, but
tracks the eyes of Mr. Robot. Yes, I think you're right. Like we're not supposed to think, oh, Philip can see both of these characters in the room.
Mm-hmm.
It's a coincidence, but it's not a coincidence, right?
Yeah.
It's a planned coincidence.
And they do a lot of like, I like how like Mr. Robot and Elliott kind of step in front of each other, and the other like shadows, because and that sight line is very clever, because it visually tells us that no matter where they're standing, they're still like in Philip's gaze if he turns in a direct. So yeah, he's definitely fucking with us, and if you didn't think that at this scene, you're definitely going to be thinking about it by the end of the episode. But
yeah,
I still think they're playing it. He's playing it straight too.
Yeah. So then we move on to Darlene calling. Well, it happens during that scene, but it's kind of a piece with the next one. She calls to tell Elliott their mother's dead. Then they go over to the home she was in, tell the caretaker that they don't want her stuff. Mm-hmm. Just throw it all out. And she's like, oh, we can't. So they pack up her stuff to donate it, but they find out about a safety deposit box that they didn't know about. And Darlene steals her mother's coat. And Walkman.
And yeah, Elliott's old Walkman.
Yeah.
Is there so with all these different like identities that we're playing with this episode, is there anything to the coincidence that Elliott died metaphorically and in a real sense the same night that his mother did? Yeah,
so I don't know, because they're doing a couple of things that are sort of connecting characters in a weird way. That's one of them. It's got to be considered, but I didn't see anybody talking really about that. There was one guy on Reddit who was talking about that, but
yeah, I mean, it's interesting because we've seen his mother be like incorporated into some of his fantasies. We've seen his mother being incorporated into this, like at the end of this episode, like that final scene. She's definitely there with the younger version of Elliott. Again, he's fucking with us. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what part this plays, but there's no way that that's just a coincidence that they both died, quote unquote, in the same night.
Yeah.
I thought that some of these scenes of Elliott dealing with their mother's death is some of the little bit of humor that Mr. Robot has, like when he asked the nursing home administrator, like, what are we supposed to do? She was like, well, some turn to the Lord, and he's like, with the boxes. And then later when he's dealing with when they're dealing with the Undertaker, and he slides in, he's like cremation, cardboard coffin, cheapest earned.
Yep.
I like some of that stuff.
Good for him.
Okay, yeah, safe deposit box.
Yeah, what's in the box?
I think
because we see later that all that shit was thrown out.
A plain reading is nothing is in the box. That this is what it is on the surface level. That there was stuff in the box, but nothing that's going to be important to the plot because it was all thrown out. This is just, sometimes life doesn't work out as neatly as you'd want. Sometimes not everything's a clue. And I also felt like it might be a spoiler, kind of like the concept of chaff, or flat, stuff you put out to defeat radar. Esmail's putting all these other potential mysteries that he addresses on the screen and says they're not significant, but he knows people won't believe him, so he's throwing all this stuff out. He's like a jet fighter after it detects a missile launch from the ground. It's just like flares and everything shooting out of his ass. Maybe.
There's another thing that might be that too in this episode. At one point, Darlene and Dom both are shown in close up to be unlocking their phones. Well, Darlene unlocks Elliott's phone that way. I'm like, how does Darlene know Elliott's code? And B, why did they show both those characters who are, roughly connected, unlocking phones very conspicuously?
Because they're security conscious, Jim.
I mean, yes, it could just be that, but that's again maybe that chaff,
Yeah.
Like, here's a weird thing, deal with it.
No, this show, I mean, it's crazy. This show is very much like Charlie on Always Sunny with his yarn board. It makes you feel that way.
Yeah.
Because there's so much stuff that they're throwing. There's so much stuff you could tear into. Not all of it can possibly be significant. And then there's stuff like the wine bottle, which is just a mistake. And after the final scene of this episode, I'm like, was that a mistake? Or is that something he threw in there so he could
Yeah.
There's wheels within wheels here. And it's probably doing the show no favor that we're all trying to be like the bad audience in a magician's show, that we're trying to get the angle on him so we can see what he's doing with that fucking rabbit, and how he's sawing through that box without killing the girl. And it's like, maybe we should just enjoy the show, but that's not what we're all here for.
Yeah, and he's not encouraging us to. He's got a sign on stage that says, check out the weird angles here.
Yeah.
See if you can spot it.
See if you can. He's inviting us up on the stage and putting our arms all around so we can prove that there's no wires or trick boxes.
I mean, there's shit embedded in the soundtrack of this show that you have to decode.
Yeah.
In fucking spectrographs, man.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing here.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's move on to Dom being interrogated about Santiago. She tries not to reveal her involvement with the DA, but she's acting very suspiciously, and she eventually covers for the DA by saying, yes, he was involved. He was a double agent, but it was a different cartel that he was working with. And then she reports into Janice, who asks a whole bunch of questions to verify that it went smoothly. And she's sort of, as she's creating her animal art, let's call it.
La Mort Harousse is the name of her shop, which is French for the happy death. I looked up.
Okay. She seems pretty stunned when that lady drops the dog on her desk.
Does she?
Surprised me. She looks at it. She's like stupefied by it. I don't understand.
I don't understand why you just throw a dead animal on a desk.
That's what they're there for, man.
You got it there in your purse, and you just flop it out.
You know how many dead animals?
Such a bizarre end to that scene.
Yeah, it is.
I was like having a conniption fit throughout Dom's interview with the FBI because I was screaming like, the obvious play here is to just lean into the fact that he was an actual double agent. And like this has happened so many times in Spycraft. You use Dom as the one who destroys the double agent to put herself beyond reproach so she can smoothly step into the double agent role. And I'm like, I can't believe the Dark Army is so stupid to not see this. Then when she nervously starts talking about him being a double agent, I actually took that as like, holy shit, Dom is actually going to buckle down and, take her chances with the legal system, until she actually said it was the Trujillo drug gang or cartel. And I'm like, oh my God, I got rope-a-dope like 3 times in one scene.
Yeah, she made her decision in this scene.
I guess it's smart.
She's the new Santiago.
It's smart because I thought they'd just say, well, he's working with the Dark Army and, we rolled him up. But I guess blaming it on some unrelated conspiratorial group is even better than pinning it to.
Yeah, it sends them on a goose chase. I wonder if they'll get wise to that, though.
That's the thing, yeah. So
yeah, because once they investigate and it comes back, well, actually, no, he had nothing to do with him. Then Dom will once again be under suspicion, right?
But I guess the idea is White Rose can fabricate, like she can make it look like. Because like, how do you tell the difference in a person being framed and a sloppy double agent?
Right.
It's probably pretty tough.
Yeah, I do think even though, Dom does make a choice here, she could still be swayed because she is right on the edge, right? Like if Elliott or Darlene were to come to her with a good enough plan, a strong enough proposal, she could come back over to the side of right here.
Yeah. I do have a genuine management criticism of the Dark Army. This idea of killing a person over 99.9% clarity.
Yeah.
Like, this reminds me of, like, if you go to a restaurant and you can tell the staff are, like, really want you to, like, well, you might as well get us 10 on these reviews because if we get anything less than 10, we get shit for it. It's like, then why do you have a 1 through 10 scale?
Yeah.
Do you want accurate information or do you want
10.
your dick sucked? Dark Army, do you want your people to tell you accurate information about their gut feelings, or do you want them to be like, no problem, boss, there's never any problems, 100% sure, everything's like, fuck, man? The fuck? There's certain, and I guess part of this is like, I wonder if there's anything Darlene could have said that, not Darlene, sorry, Dom. If there's anything Dom could have said to get her out of the noose here, or get her the investigation, the investigating agent out of the noose here, because maybe it was just another way to impress upon Dom how awesome and fearsome the Dark Army is. Like, anything less than 100% success, we're going to, so like, that guy's going to die anyway because they just want to make a point.
They better hope that it really does look like a suicide.
Well, I was thinking the next play is to make it seem like this guy was part of the cover-up, and Dom, like, informing him made him realize the jig was up, so now they can, like, makes it look
cartel.
even more prompt, like there's a bigger conspiracy and a bigger goose chase to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's why I started thinking, like, maybe this guy was going to die no matter what.
Yeah.
So, another senior agent done, like, probably.
Also, you're not dealing with the most stable person in the world. I mean,
yeah,
it's hilarious to me with Janice, like, if that's her real name, carving up animals, preserving animals, and then listening to serial killer podcasts or whatever in her spare time. Like, if you needed more indication about how weird, how abnormal this woman is.
She's especially, I feel like she's channeling a lot of Irv energy. Like, there's the same kind of, like, cheerful psychopath here at work.
For sure. All right, let's move on to Elliott at the funeral home. Mr. Robot notices he's not really reacting to his mother's death and encourages him to take it in and start dealing with it. And Elliott says they have to deal with White Rose or the rest of their family's dead, and none of that'll matter.
I'm kind of on Elliott's side here. Like, it's all nice, Mr. Robot, to say, take a time, take some time, take a breath, take time to mourn your mother. I got 8 days. Until these crazy people kill me, if that.
Yeah.
That's the latest they'll kill me.
And they'll kill you.
Yeah.
And they'll kill Darlene.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like always reminded me of, like, I've worked IT all my life, and, like, bosses would come in during crunch time, like, are you guys getting enough time to take care of yourselves? Like, fuck you, dude. You know we're working 65, 70 hours. If we stopped, you'd get your bitch on because we're not going to hit her some milestones. So what are we doing here? Yeah. Making you feel better about the situation? Okay, Mr. Robot, I'll take the time. I just took the time. Fuck you. Like, what the hell? What the hell? And he's like, yeah, it's like, I get it. It didn't go the best there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, because he's right. Let me ask you this. Could the stress of all of this, the not dealing with his mother's death, there's a lot of theories out there about who the other one is. One of them is that there's an angry version of Elliott who's kind of been there all along in the background in the events that we get explanations of, but don't really see. The times where he lashes out, throws himself out a window, freaks out at the museum. Could we potentially have, the not dealing with his mother and the stress of that, along with his impending doom, bring out this other one? Could we finally get to see it? See angry Elliott, as I'm calling that version of him.
Yes, and I've seen some of those theories where they've gone back and, like, looked at all the times where he's acted, like, super out of character, but I don't know, because a lot of that seems like also Mr. Robot DNA. But it's and we were certainly led to believe that early on in the show. It's like one of those things where it's like we're told there's a third personality, so now everyone's trying to find a third personality, and it's like, how do you do that? Mm-hmm. You look for things that are divergent about Elliott. But it's going to be tough with just evidence we have now to determine, because there's like a lot of great theories rolling around. I don't know the angry Elliott. Is that the one you're favoring? No. Okay. But
we'll talk about all of those in a little more depth when we get to the end of this episode.
Because I'm like, okay, when are we going to get to this?
Not yet.
Okay, yeah.
Or we'll never get to anything else.
All right. All
right. Then we move on to Darlene. She doesn't know what her mother would want to be buried in. She's talking to the guy selling coffins, selling funeral services. Elliott slides in, like you said, says cremation, cardboard coffin, cheapest urn.
That should be the answer for just about everybody.
Yeah, the 3 C's.
Yes.
Darlene's curious about what's in the safe deposit box, and Elliott very much isn't. Darlene uses her previous history comforting Elliott when he was scared to sort of guilt him into checking it out with her.
That's a powerful scene. Like, she's saying, like, all the times I was there.
It's manipulative, but powerful.
Well, is it manipulative?
Yes, because once she says, like, he says, "Oh, I don't not care about this." She says, "Fine, we'll prove it. Come with me to this thing." Like, she's manipulating him. Yeah.
I guess, but it's like, is it manipulation to be like, hey, I loaned you $50. Now I want you to pay me $50 back?
No.
Okay.
Certainly
Well,
not.
she's essentially saying the same thing. Like, I have put all this deposits into your emotional fucking account over the years. I'm wanting to make one little fucking deposit.
And all those deposits I was making,
Uh-huh.
I expect those to be repaid. You didn't know I expected those to be repaid?
Again-
Oh, well, I expected it. Here's the guilt.
I mean, that's a curious concept that like you don't owe anything back to people that have given to you. Like,
But pointing out that you owe me for this, I think, is the manipulation. If Elliott were, a brother to her, he probably would say, "Yeah, you're right. Let's go do this."
right.
But she's like,
But he's making the classic.
"See,
like,
I did all this for you. Now do this for me."
Right, but he's making his classic things like, well, I don't see the value of this, and she's like, well, who cares? I do, and I want you on this anyway. And like, it's this exactly the same way as like, if I loan you $50 and then you stiff me to $50, and I later say, hey, you owe me $50. Like, I didn't know you wanted me to pay that back. It's like, I feel like that's the conversation we're having right now. And the only thing different is we're talking emotions rather than money.
We'd have to ask Judge Judy. She would know all about that loans versus gifts.
Yeah. Anyway, especially when the brother or sister, it's like, yeah, I'm on Angela's, or God damn it, I'm on Darlene's side. I think that, yeah, she's been there for him. She's clearly, I mean, she's the one. I mean, that's the thing that complicates it is Elliott's no less fragile in this situation. It's not like Elliott's from a place of strength, where she presumably was with her being slightly in a slightly stronger emotional and mental state. But she's in pretty bad shape. Maybe Elliott's better off, and she's just asking for a little support.
I'm trying to remember how much Darlene knows about their current situation, like the pressure that Elliott's under.
Well,
I don't think she knows everything.
I don't think she knows. I think that she thinks that Elliott doesn't, like, is just kind of checked out. Like, she is not aware of his one-man war against White Rose and all that kind of stuff. And she also thinks he's checked out about the... I
mean, she was there when he made the deal with White Rose in the barn to get the stuff shipped over from Congo.
But maybe she thought that was it.
Maybe she thinks that's it.
Because then Vera comes and he acts completely nonplussed about that as well, which more to that. But from her perspective, Elliott's just been kind of like, she's been falling apart because of all this shit that's happened, and he's just been ignoring her.
Yeah. And this scene is also where Darlene sees that Elliott's researching Susan Jacobs, and that'll come into play later. But for now, we're going to Dom, who's having trouble concentrating on her own interrogations. She gets a text message about Agent Horton being dead before it comes on the news, and she's told that apparently he committed suicide. He was killed over the 0.01%. Not sure.
Yep.
Keep it 100.
Yeah.
And Sam Esmail was playing with this too on Twitter. He was responding affirmative as like 100% to people, and I don't know.
Everything's been I really like what BD Wong's been doing. Have you looked at his Twitter feed? Last week he's been like commenting kind of like from White Rose perspectives. Like last week he tweeted, Angela. All people want to talk about is Angela. No one wants to think about the pressures that I'm under, what I'm going through. And he's like playing it as this like really kind of like regally bitchy persona. It's just great. He seems like he's having a lot of fun with it.
Well, yeah, we'll get to Angela and White Rose pretty soon. Anything you want to say about that? I mean, she's just interrogating some run-of-the-mill,
some Irish person tracker disappearer.
Yeah.
I don't think, because I thought that what was going to happen was, because this show makes it paranoid. I thought when she got it from the room that guy was going to murder. Like it turns out that he was like a dark army operative there to murder the other FBI agent for some purpose. And but then it's like, oh no, it's actually Agent Horton.
Yeah, turns out she still has to do a job, which is interrogating criminals.
So now she's got even a bigger interview lined up that's going to have a higher stakes lie told.
Yep.
Yeah. Good management, Dark Army.
All right, we move on to the safety deposit box scene where they go to Bank of E and find that all of that shit's been tossed out 120 days after the lapse payment. Darlene's sad and she's pissed, but not about her mom. She's pissed at Elliott's moved on in her perception from Angela's death. And he says he hasn't. And then he gets out this Walkman, which has a tape in it. And they listen to the tape together, which turns out to be a Mother's Day recording that Angela, Darlene, and Elliott made as kids, but they made it for Angela's mom.
Right.
And somehow it turned up in the possession of their mother. They're not sure how.
Somehow. Mm-hmm.
These are the questions that no one is asking this episode that I find suspicious.
I think people were asking. It's just that there's no immediate, like, this is probably part rolled up in the other persona, right? You know, like, what part of Elliott feels sorry for his mother and wants to comfort her in some way, so he gives it this mother. Like, it has to be, right? It has to be Elliott that gave it. How else would she get it? Although I was actually arguing with Cecily about this when we were watching it, and I'm like, well, he lived with his mom presumably most of his life, and if you move out, a lot of times you don't take everything. Did he leave it there, or like when
Angela could have given
when he was under house arrest and he's staying? Like, did he leave it there then?
Yeah, who knows? There's a million ways she could have come into possession.
Right. But I have a feeling it'll be a big clue because yes, you're right. It's like I guess let's just get to the safe deposit box. We'll talk about all this stuff at that point.
I mean, this is it.
Oh, really?
That scene, yeah.
Oh, okay. So these are things that the episodes are actually raising, but also telling us not to worry about. And I'm just curious about how straight Esmail is playing with this, because plain reading is the bank just threw it out because it's some crazy old lady's thing. She stopped paying her bills and they threw it out.
Yeah.
If they threw it out, that means if the bank is telling the truth, I don't know why they wouldn't. There's no way we'll ever find out what was contained in that box.
But they
and even if it was, even if we could, there's no way we could recover because it's in a landfill somewhere. Probably not even like. Don't we send our garbage? Doesn't New York send the garbage to like another country at this point or something? Like I thought they were exporting their garbage either to like New Jersey. I mean, it's just some in landfill. How would you ever find it?
Good question.
Some fucker lost remember that guy that lost a hard drive that had a key that has like 150 million bitcoins? Yeah. He can't find that shit.
Still looking for it.
Yeah, you're not going to find her knitting projects or,
What if it was information? Okay, so there's some timeline things here. Like people have looked at the slip, the safety box deposit slip, and apparently it was shut down. I want to say sometime in September, which was exactly 120 days after the 5/9 attack would have happened. So like what they're assuming happened is 5/9 happened, the money's no good anymore, so the automatic payment didn't go through, obviously, because all the records are gone, and they just threw out all the shit. I don't know if that is like suspicious or anything, because that makes sense. It probably happened to a lot of people, but the idea that Elliott and Darlene make a sort of big deal about not knowing she had this box and then going there and finding out that the contents are missing, I think is encouraging us to say what was in that.
Yeah, I mean, I can see like if the third aspect of Elliott gave her the walkie-talkie,
but it could be something important. It could be something related to 5/9. It could be something related to the original Washington Township stuff.
That's what I was getting at. So like if the third persona gave the mother the Walkman in the same lapses of Elliott's time perception, that aspect could have also gotten the slip and visited the safe deposit box and cleared it out. Yeah. And if that's the case, then there's no mystery to unsolve. We just have to wait for that third aspect to explain what it is and what they've done with it. It's like, I don't think we have enough information to speculate now.
Yeah.
But
I think you're right.
Yeah, I was somewhat surprised that there was not more theory crafting. I think it just got overshadowed by the larger theory.
Yeah, which might have been the intention.
Yeah.
I do like how they sort of don't let us hear the tape until Elliott sticks his ear up to it, because we
can kind of sort
Elliott.
It. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then we move on to Philip telling White Rose that he's resigning as CEO of E Corp by the end of the year, which means he's also leaving the Deus Group, which means since the appointment of his successor requires this in-person vote of all of the Deus Group members, White Rose is going to have to organize a meet, which is his way of getting Elliott what he needs. Everybody together. I don't like this scene. I love this scene, and I don't like this scene.
Yeah, because they're talking another language, and there's no subtitles.
Well, I think it's a poorly written scene. I think it's a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Like, they might as well have been speaking Greek without subtitles, because
which is that actually the point of the scene? If it is, it's just a lampshade. So Deus, meaning God, and Deus Ex Machina being God of the machine or something like that. Which is essentially a way to neatly wrap something up out of nowhere, or to explain something out of nowhere. Is that what he's getting at? And if so, it's just a lampshade on how poorly set up this scene is. Because they create this fictional, this like entirely fabricated, we get everybody together under this clause. They never set that up before. They should have.
Yeah.
I don't know. But the acting is so fucking good in this scene.
Yeah, no, it's a very J.K. Rowling kind of Harry Potter way of like, oh, you didn't know that wands with the same core would do. It's like you're introducing a concept and making the rules simultaneously.
Yeah.
But now Sam Esmail's insisting that's not what he's doing.
And you're using it to push the plot forward at the same time.
Although
that's
the Deus,
there's nothing
like, there's no way he introduced the concept of this Deus Corp. You know,
no, he didn't. The whole Deus thing is also
right. It makes me wonder why this isn't just Dark Army. You know, like why did they have to invent a new clandestine, shadowy organization? Why couldn't this, like, because it seems like the effect is the same. Like if it turns out that White Rose is just the spokesperson for a consortium of people, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what the label is.
But that's what I'm saying. Like,
Deus is
the fact that like there's all these rules we didn't know about, and it's like, oh, this is going to be impossible to do. I have faith for you. This is not how the fucking game is played. Well, at least you won. Like, what the fuck does any of that mean? It pisses off White Rose enough that she trashes her unbalanced Christmas tree,
and just makes one of the sternest faces I've ever seen. Like BD Wong, when Philip says I'm resigning. And I don't give a shit about your plan. That look from BD Wong is withering.
Yeah,
it's brutal.
But that's the thing. It's like that again. Like, why does he now have leverage over her? Like, you know, Mr. Robot says because this is loyalty. Well, I mean, she can just kill this guy. Like, they've been dueling for seasons, where that was always felt like something that could be possibly on the table. It's
a disruption, right? It's a minor disruption, but a disruption nonetheless.
That's why this Deus thing is so annoying, because it almost seems entirely designed to explain why White Rose just doesn't paste, you know, Philip right here and there. That she is somewhat beholden, even though it's revealed that they've been working for her all along to this organization, and she hasn't got the final say. It's a way to. I don't know. It's very Harry Potter Horcruxy kind of like, oh, this is the thing that's going to fuel the final act, and I don't know. A lot of this will go down a lot easier if the third, if they nail the third aspect of Elliott's personality reveal correctly, because like that's way harder to pull off than this fucking Deus crap. So
I mean, the thing I do like about it is the Angela factor, because killing Angela was a mistake on White Rose's part, I think, because it removed all the leverage the White Rose had over Philip. You know, at this point, he doesn't have much to live for, right? And White Rose needed that to keep him under her thumb, and it's just not going to happen now.
Yeah.
And so it sets up the ability for him to get them all in the same place, and potentially whatever happens with that is going to be because White Rose killed Angela.
Well, plus it's like also like White Rose's true believers are not afraid of death because they think everything can be erased. It also identifies Philip as not a true believer. Yeah. So whatever plan that she thinks is, he doesn't put that much faith in it, because why would he be pissed off about sacrificing Angela? I almost thought that they might go that way when Elliott was rolling tough on him with like, you know, you just let him murder your daughter, and how do you live with that? I thought he might say, oh, who's to say she won't come back? But this so
telling that to someone who doesn't believe your project is real,
right?
Is not very effective.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you get the tree smash, like you said, which I like because it sort of mirrors his vase smash when Angela's killed.
I liked what a struggle it was too.
Yeah, it was. It's a big tree.
Yeah, like there was a lot of tugging and pulling on that to make it come down. I felt like I would love to see the first take on that.
Yeah. Oh God, can you imagine being the person who has to set that back up after
maybe that's why it was so awkward, because it's like there wasn't a full like they thought it's like one good yank would bring it down, and it's like, because the way I was looking at BD Wong on the second watch, it's like he gives a good yank and then it's like double takes it's not fall down, so then he's just like full on
Yeah, it's like he's got a rocket a little
Yeah,
bit.
so it's like I wonder if they're like, well, that's the take. Like, we don't got 4 hours to reset this fucking thing, man.
Or the budget for that many fancy ornaments.
Right. Each time you smash this tree, it's like wrecking a Lamborghini. Come on. It's hung with nothing but Fabergé eggs because
handmade glass ornaments. All right, let's move on to the next scene. Philip calls to tell Elliott that the meeting is going to happen. Afterward, Darlene asks why Elliott is hacking Susan Jacobs and reveals that she was the one who broke into her house and killed her. Darlene also says she's definitely going to help Elliott take down White Rose and pairs their phones up before dropping the info, which is new to Elliott, that Vera showed up at his apartment 2 months ago, even though Darlene told someone who she thought was Elliott that Vera was there, and that person did not care. And then she goes off to get Susan Jacobs' info. And Elliott goes off on Mr. Robot thinking, she told you and you didn't tell me. Mr. Robot very strongly insists that Darlene never told him. I believe him.
Why do you think Elliott had that super strong reaction to finding out that Darlene was involved with Susan Jacobs' death? Just that, like, he was hoping to protect his sister from something like that, or
hilarious reaction. He shouts "Jesus fucking Christ" at an illuminated cross on the wall.
Yes.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Because then he already knew.
Is it the irony of all of it? Is it like, fuck, like
maybe
all of this shit is just swirling around itself in a toilet bowl?
But it's weird because he went on and says, like, yeah, I read what she did in the Washington Township case. And, you know, it's like he was primed to excuse it before he did. So it's like, but I don't know. But yeah, the fact that all this is related, and maybe it's frustration at the fact that the thing that prevented him from getting what he wanted was Darlene's kind of misadventures while he was in prison. Mm-hmm. Because all that stuff felt like obviously a distraction. She was trying to carry on his work, but she didn't really know what that was, you know, what they're supposed to do after they pulled off the 9/11 or 5/9 hack. And yeah, obviously she hadn't do that. They'd just roll up on Susan, grab her, and they'd have their in. So maybe it's frustration at how much harder his job is because of her.
I wanted to real quick before we get into the meat of this stuff talk about this very small hack, because there aren't a lot of hacks happening lately. I just want to talk about the technicals. So what she does here to pair up their phones is she's basically created her own version of this open source app called Signal, which is a communication platform, a secure communication platform. She just installs her modified version of it onto Elliott's phone, which will trade GPS locations so they can know where each other are.
How secure? The thing I wondered is how secure that is, because if she's able to do... the other thing I wondered, and I've been wondering this a while, is it seems like a lot of people do that kind of like pattern unlock for their phone. Mm-hmm. It would not surprise me that there's only like 15 combinations that people actually use.
Because
like
the way human thumbs move.
Because 99% of everyone...
Are they left-handed or right-handed? Oh, we eliminated 4/5 of the combos.
Yeah, like, you know, I just wonder if like 99% of all phones could be hacked with like 15 different attempts.
Probably.
You do the triangle, you do the E, you do the 1, you do the 7.
Oh, you know Phillips is an E, right?
Right. It's like, it just seems like one of those things where like we traded real security for something that feels like it's security, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's always a trade-off between security and usability.
Right.
But
I feel like
that code feels like a good compromise, but
it feels like we put a bunch of cheap luggage locks on all of our phones and think it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's better than like allowing cops just to hold your phone up to your face and unlock it. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like mega fail.
Yeah.
But
got that feature on my phone, but I don't use it for my lock screen.
Right.
I use the combo. Yeah. You got to.
So you
protect yourself.
Do you use a PIN number, or do you actually use the
iPhones don't have the swipey pattern thing.
Really? I thought they were the first ones that had it. Seriously?
Nope.
Okay, well, good for Apple. If my theory's correct, then
I might be 2% more secure than that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about more serious things. Do you think it could be the snowman in the subway? Is the altar?
No.
Oh, and when we use the term altar, we're talking about like another version of a person in Elliott's mind, or potentially Elliott might be an alter of this person, the other one that we don't know yet.
Elliott Alterman.
Should I recap the final scene too? Because you kind of have to talk about both of them.
Maybe they're all different. They're versions of the word alter. You got Alteriot, Alderman. You got Elliott, Alterman. You got Elliott, Alter.
What is happening?
Alter.
This podcast is falling apart.
Those are the identities. It's. I'm staking it here, pushing all my internet chips into one pile.
I'll take that bet.
Code crack. What are you asking? I'm sorry.
Let's also recap the final scene because it's very short.
Okay.
And it's kind of tied into this scene. So that final scene is a weird scene in that boardroom, which is, if you don't recognize it, it's where Tyrell tried to convince Elliott to join E Corp in the first season. And so it should be kind of familiar. But Elliott's mother tells a young version of Elliott that they have to wait for him. And she's not talking about Mr. Robot or Elliott, but for someone she calls the other one.
And that they're saving the head spot at the table for him, too?
I assume, yeah, she says that's not your seat.
Right, or at least not yet.
And there are 4 chairs around that table, which might be key.
Well, I think so. If they're waiting for... So I don't think Mom's sitting at the table. I think you have young Elliott, Mr. Robot, Elliott, and then the other one.
Yeah. When is this happening? What is happening? Because I read this scene as happening in Elliott's head. And a lot of people are trying to say that this is a flashback, including USA themselves.
Right. Their official not transcript, but synopsis of the episode describes this as a flashback. And boy, a lot of people on Reddit were taking that to the bank.
It's hard to, because you have the one trade, what is it, Freedom Tower, that is prominently displayed in the scene.
Right.
There's no way you make a continuity area that big because you have to put that stuff in there.
I mean, you had a label that said 2017, like literally front and center in a camera, and that's where I'm like, is Sam Elliott so demented?
Yeah, but they just had to go buy a bottle of wine for that. This, they have to digitally composite into the shot.
What do you mean? I thought that they like that. I thought the problem was that if this was Elliott flashback, that building couldn't be there. Right. So it'd be hard. So the omission would be to forget to take it out because you forgot what time the time frame it is.
So you think they literally shot through a window overlooking New York City?
I mean, that's a possibility, right?
I doubt it.
Really?
I mean, yeah. It's a possibility, certainly.
Yeah. No, I don't believe
but
this.
To zoom the camera right in on it,
I'm actually devil's advocating it.
Yeah. To me, it seems unlikely that they would not notice a huge building that shouldn't be there in a flashback. So this is most likely not a flashback.
I think it's most likely not a flashback. I think it's very easy to believe that the people involved in writing the synopsis for the episodes have no connection to the production whatsoever. There's some kind of marketing.
It's a fucking marketing intern that
watch
this
episode and write a synopsis of it and post it to it and make sure it's done by Sunday night. And just like I don't think the ARGs are completely fully blessed and approved by Sam Esmail. Like they're hired out by some other company to do them. Like they're clearly operating off a script, but. So I think it's some kind of psychosphere that represents like Elliott's the core of Elliott, or like maybe his wetware, and these are things bouncing around in him. But I can't explain. Have we ever shifted to something like this in before, where it's like some kind of construct? Like I guess the jail would be an obvious example, but like Elliott was there. I guess Elliott is. So what is this supposed to actually represent? You know, like if this is his brain, I don't think they've ever done that before. They've definitely shown a prison, you know, like they've played games like that, but this someplace that you're just a location is getting completely fictitious. Where is Elliott in this? I don't know.
He could be that kid, you know, the young version of Elliott. He could be.
But then why is he in the room?
Something else in the room, yeah.
He
sees himself right before he dies. Last episode, quote unquote, dies.
True.
He sees himself,
right,
and his mother and his father.
Yeah.
But not in like in
is
a
it
construct.
Possible? Is it possible Tyrell is the other identity? Because then it's easy to explain the other meeting he had where he's trying to recruit Elliott. Like that was just his persona's kind of jockeying for control.
Right. I want to say the interactions don't line up, but. You know, this could be something where once you go back and watch it, it makes perfect sense.
Right.
I've seen other theories that are probably better than Tyrell.
Okay.
I mean, the one that I sort of favor beyond all odds is that this other person could potentially be Sam Esmail himself, like the creator of the show, going under like the Sam Seppiel persona, which if you don't know who Sam Seppiel is,
Right.
you can be forgiven because he's sparsely mentioned throughout the whole series, really. But it's the handle that Elliott uses online for most of his hacks. It's his billionaire persona. It's the name he uses for that when he tries to gain access to Steel Mountain. There's a lot of like, he talks about his friend Sam, who taught him that mantra about mind awake, body asleep stuff that he uses to then go into this dream state. There's a lot of stuff around Sam Seppiel, and I spent a lot of time reading about theories, and I just fucking ran out of time because there are so many of them. And I hate it. I want to spend like 15 hours just digging into all this stuff. I had about 4.
We'll talk more about this because I started to get into the Sam Espoli theory and
Seppiel, yeah.
You mentioned that you had read up about it, so I kind of shied away from that and went into other things. But like, what?
The idea is that would be.
When was the first time he was mentioned? Was it in season 1?
First time was definitely in season 1.
Okay, because I remember the Iron Mountain hacker. I got that far in my research, but I was like, because like the thing that Sam Esmail clearly said about this persona is it's from season 1.
Yeah,
like it's been in the very beginning of the show.
And it's interesting too, and why I'm kind of tying this into Sam Esmail himself is because Sam Esmail has shown up in the show a few times, all the way back to the pilot, where he shows up in the subway. And people are hypothesizing that could be some version of this Sam Seppiel, artificial friend, whatever imaginary friend that Elliott had. That imaginary friends.
Do you
are
remember
very much
in season 2 where they showed that Halloween night where kind of the persona of Mr. Robot was created, where him and Darlene were going to watch the careful massacre of the bourgeoisie, and he puts on the Mr. Robot hat, but he also puts on that mask.
Yeah.
Now that happened in season 2, but is it possible that this mask version of Mr. Robot is the third identity? Because like I think we saw this at various times. Lots of people wore the mask to make the F Society videos, but I think Elliott was definitely one of the ones that did. That mask was also prominent in the early seasons, and like having that flashback be kind of the genesis of this split personality also has it make sense that all of those personas would be like visible in that scene.
Yeah.
So
and there is a scene where Mr. Robot, I think, Christian Slater, wearing the robot mask, the bourgeoisie mask, invites Elliott into the video and puts a mask on him. And they both are wearing masks. He takes the mask off to reveal another mask, which he puts that first mask on Elliott. So then all of 3 of them are kind of in that scene together.
Yeah. The thing that makes me not like this theory is, what is the difference between Mr. Robot and Elliott? You can articulate those differences. What's the difference between the careful mask of the bourgeoisie persona and the other 2?
This is what I think is interesting with this angry Elliott theory.
Okay.
And where that might tie in is because there are a lot of times where Elliott over his life has lashed out, has done things, that are beyond the pale. Like apparently there was this big thing at the museum where he had a blow up. There was the stuff where, he threw himself out of a window. A lot of people are guessing that if you take that all the way back and you look at those moments, that could be a third persona manifesting itself. That could be one of his alters. And they're saying like, this is the Sam character, right? This is the imaginary friend he was talking about. The imaginary friend who's telling him to do these awful things, and one that he might repress.
Yeah, I like that.
Then there's this interesting. Let's throw more wrinkles into this.
Okay.
So this dream sequence that he has when he's getting clean in season 2.
Yep.
Season 2, episode 4. If you want to go check out the whole thing, because it's super interesting. And Sam Esmail has talked about this episode, that episode being key to the entire series. There's a line from Angela in that where they're talking to each other about something, and Angela proclaims that Elliott has only been alive. He's only a month old, which makes a lot of people think that Elliott is not the prime alter here, right? He's not the host of all of it. And that potentially that Sam character could be. Because it's funny too, because actually that's in season 1, I think.
Okay.
It's episode 4 of season 1, and I think when she tells him that, we're about a month from the beginning of the show, which I think is super interesting. If she's telling him that he's a month old.
Did you see any of the theories revolving around the name being like attached to some sort of godhood aspect?
Yeah, it's called. So apparently, Sam is another word in Hebrew for God.
That's not true, because I did look, because that's what I spent a lot of time running down. But Samuel means God has heard.
Okay.
And then the last name was asserted that is another foreign. It might be Jewish, it might be Hindu, for like a hidden place. So like God is heard from a hidden
God is what they're talking about.
Yeah, and there's also some theories from previous seasons that E Corp stands for Elliott Corp. That this is that that either Tyrell was an aspect of him that was running E Corp or whatever. And there was a scene where, who was it that told? Oh, in that same scene where Elliott was talking to Tyrell in the boardroom in this penthouse suite. Elliott said his problem is that he can only see what's in front of him and not above him. And people are saying that like was an allusion to God. So like this is a complicated, like this is a God from a hidden place. Deus is the organization that's running everything. E Corp of its front could be Elliott Corp. Although these also work with Sam Esmail.
Yeah,
the Esmail Corp. Like if they want to really lean into the God as the creator of the series, but like,
and this is where
if they go there, that could come off so fucking hack,
dude.
But Esmail's got to know that, right?
The idea that a creator would insert themselves into their own show in such an integral way,
is
either brilliant depending on what they do with it, and they have potentially set that up. Like Esmail, by having them talk to us as a member and having 4 chairs around the boardroom, potentially we are the 4th, Esmail is the 3rd, the creator of the show, and this entire fucking show is a commentary on how people watch shows.
Yeah.
And that's what I was getting at earlier when I said, this show sprang out of an era where people were going, how the fuck do we interface with the internet and keep them from figuring out everything, but also using that, right?
Yeah.
This whole show could be a meta thing where we are active participants, Esmail is an active participant, and the characters are too. It gets fucking weird. And I think so I don't have like a single pet theory that I think is right. What I think is that elements of all of these are going to be true.
Sure.
And that if he is going for that meta thing, it will either be brilliant or it will not fucking work. It will be a travesty.
Well, the other thing that I'm surprised I didn't see theorizing on is that, if you're talking famous trinities, hard to beat the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost.
Yeah.
And in this aspect, we have a father and a son clearly accounted. Who the fuck is the Holy Ghost?
Angela's wearing all white.
Yeah, but so here's the other thing is, would this show fuck around with the gender, the pronoun?
Oh, to say him when they don't mean him?
Yeah, because we've also got a she that hides in plain sight as a him. Yeah. So like that could be something that they're playing, like if Angela is actually a he in the persona, but she's some kind of weird construct. The Angela host theory, I don't know.
Yeah, it's.
But like,
they've played with so many ideas.
But
in
the
this
Holy
show.
Ghost, it's fun to think of Angela as that because she's literally dead. So that like her dying may be fractured, like, but then that's not an aspect that's been with him the entire time either. Yeah.
She also might have died right around the same time as Elliott and his mom.
Yeah. What did you think about? Because I saw some people theorizing that the third persona is actually us, and there's somehow the audience's perception and participation in this show is going to turn an event or two in the climax. What do you think of that?
I don't think this is going to turn into Bandersnatch. Just a season of Bandersnatch episodes from here out. No,
you're referring to the Netflix Choose Your Own Adventure experiment from earlier this year.
Yeah, interactive film essentially. I don't think it's going to do that, but it is an interesting concept because I think if Sam Esmail is trying to deliver a message with this show about power and corruption and our society, we need to be a part of that, right? We need, in order to affect any change, we have to be a part of that.
But how do you make the viewers be a main character? I mean, I can see this way where we're just a passive,
right?
A one way. He's just shouting down a I don't know what the hell you shout down, a tin can. Yeah. We're a person on the other end of a tin can string, and we're just listening. Okay. That's a way you can work, but like. There's certainly not going to be a point in episode 7 or 8 of this season where dial 999 fuck robot to have Elliott die and call 999 save robot to have him live. Like, this is not going to be some clap your hands and Tinker Bell live shit, is it?
No, I don't think so.
I think us as the audience being a part of the Trinity, I don't like. That's the one theory that I'm like completely out on, and I don't like it. And I don't like the Sam Esmail as a character as well, only because the degree of difficulty of that coming off and not being just laugh out loud bad is so high up there.
But if it worked, this would be
all makes sense
seminal television.
Yes, and that's certainly in this show's envelope. I think performance envelope.
Yeah, it has certainly been this. Stylistically, this has been revolutionary.
Yeah.
Could he do it narratively? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I would really love to see an effort. I'm going to shit all over it if it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I'm going to stand up and cheer if it does.
Yeah. That's a great thing about a final season is like, the die is cast. Season 2, I think we'd be a lot more gripped up about like some of these decisions, whereas now it's like, it either works or it doesn't, This is it.
Yeah,
this is the prestige part of the Magic Act, and we either see the wires, we don't.
I don't know. My head is still swimming with theories, and we don't have time on this podcast to do them all. But go on Reddit and check them out because there are some really smart people there doing some really great detective work.
Yeah,
maybe have figured it out, maybe not. But I'm just waiting. I'm gonna wait and see.
I like that they're doing a theory roundup.
They have a thread for that.
The front page of Mr. Robot has such a velocity that it's hard to keep up with it. Even if you sample it several times a day, it's like it's really easy to miss pretty important things. But I don't know what is important. There's like an average of 30 theories a day going through there. It's like, are they all important or none of them important?
Well, let me give you.
I have an average of like 30 emails or 30 theories flowing into my email every week too. Like I can't read them all.
One suggestion is to link back to the main discussion threads of those theories, because a lot of the things that they do are sort of follow on from other theories.
Yeah.
And I would really appreciate like some index of just like the theories that are currently floating around.
But it's funny because also like they use sticky threads, but like I noticed today, like when I was making my notes, I was consulting that thread and like reading stuff, and then I came back 2 hours later and that thread was no longer sticky.
Yeah.
It was like 3 pages back. It was just sticky on the front page 3 hours ago. It's insane how many people are participating on this thing. Especially now that we know the audience size. Like we said, like 1 out of 3 Mr. Robot watchers is a obsessive Redditor too, apparently.
Yep. For sure. That's the end of the episode.
Okay, I got feedback that has been sent to robot@baldmove.com. In addition, you can go to our forums.baldmove.com if you'd like to get your theory on. Tom has some notes from last episode. The Mary Poppins line was because the girls were English. I don't think there's more to it than that. That makes sense.
Cheap.
Why
dig,
didn't
Darlene.
I realize that? Mary Poppins, like, okay, she's just all chimney. It seemed obvious to me that that the ending was a lesson from Philip to Elliott, not a test. He knows how committed Elliott is. He's just trying to make him listen to the message Mr. Robot can't seem to deliver. Don't get sloppy or you'll die like Angela. He wants Elliott to help him take down White Rose and needs him to snap out of it. I can't think of a better way to deliver that message.
And maybe a little bit of proof to Elliott that like this is his game now.
I will say that like I felt this episode did not adequately explain that stunt.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to kill a person doing that. Philip gets the alarm, he dispatches his kill team, and he goes and interrupts them. Why? There's nothing from the conversation that he and Elliott, there's nothing like, I had to make sure you were sufficiently committed. I had, like, the whole time as he's like, hey, I let you go, and Elliott kind of has to figure out why. I don't know.
No, it's a whole conversation of glossing over things.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't. It's an awful long way to shock the audience for 3 seconds. So
yeah.
I didn't expect you to have the answers, Tom, because you were sending an email from the past. But I was just like, for me personally, I thought that was a little bit.
That brings up a question. How quick do you want them to resolve this other one, this third?
Before the end of the series.
Oh, you don't have any let's get it in an episode or two.
Nah, I'm not. I'm really trying hard not to set expectations that way because this is clearly something that's unprecedented. So if this reveal is satisfying in the 11th hour or the 9th hour or whatever, I don't care. It just needs to be fucking worth it. Mm-hmm. The game needs to be worth the candle in my estimation. Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Craig from Texas. While I wasn't super excited about the massive Cleveland steamer-esque exposition dump that Esmail took on our chests at the beginning of this episode, I think it was necessary to provide some context to the program White Rose was planning. I hope it just isn't a weakness in finding a more organic way to communicate the same thing. I also eye-rolled a tiny bit anytime the show has some shadowy group with a name like the Syndicate or the Cabal or Deus. Just feels like a real shadowy group wouldn't need a clever name. That's true. Mm-hmm. That's true.
Can we all just agree we're going to do this, but not name it?
It should be called people working cooperatively, or the commission to study important things. It should be something that makes you go to sleep as soon as you read it.
Right.
Ozymandias, not a great name for a group that's going to take over the world. Deus, Yahweh. Thor, Zeus, all those things, a little too on the nose, guys. A little too on the nose. Lastly, I like the third-person swerve at the end, but I'm hoping this is well breadcrumb that isn't a massive retcon. Seems like in an interview, Esmail said that it was above the board and we would be able to find all the clues on rewatch. I hope so, because if not, it could literally destroy the series' credibility. Yeah, and he knows that, and he's doubling down. So I think that he thinks he's got a real barn burner for us. Yeah. The problem is so did the Double D's in Game of Thrones. Fair. But he's gone through this before too. He's gone through season 2. He heard people's disappointment. I think that if he thought it was going down that way, he would be not doubling down. He would be playing this differently. But who knows? And
I think it's a different scenario than season 2. Season 2, it felt like he was desperately trying not to reveal any information.
Right.
We know he has to reveal something by the end of this.
Yeah.
So probably not going to play out the same way.
Seb just dropped a quick note to say they liked the touch of them having a snowman sitting besides Darlene and Elliott while they talked about their childhood, acting as a manifestation of their Kevin McAllister snowman. Would have been neat if they'd had Macaulay Culkin in the costume as a cameo for his one line, but that might have been a bit too on the carrot nose.
Or if he was sitting next to him with the head off under his arm or something.
Yeah. I honestly, it'd have been, if his muffled voice, that'd have been amazing. Yeah. Are we sure it's not?
Or if they just put bunny ears on the snowman.
Oh, yeah. If you don't know, Macaulay Culkin's been running a podcast called Bunny Ears. No, it would have been cool. It'd been cool to have that as a cameo, but what are you going to do? It'd been cool to have Michael J. Fox cameo in season 2, but what are you going to do? Mary Kay, in the last week's Mr. Robot podcast, you mentioned how small the TV viewership is. Wondering how big or what percentage of your audience listens to your robot podcast. Is there a decent following, or do you find yourself doing it now because you enjoy it and want to finish the show? I think that we actually kind of committed to doing the show not knowing what the audience size would be. But since you sent the email, so because of that, I wasn't planning on looking at the audience statistics because we kind of committed to doing it last season. Mm-hmm. Nothing good can come from looking at it. I actually did, and I was pleasantly surprised. It's in the solid performer category of, it's hard to say because we've moved hosts. Our old host changed the way they calculated downloads in the middle of it. So our stats for season 1 through 2 of Mr. Robot versus season 3 for Mr. Robot versus season 4 for Mr. Robot are measuring in apples, oranges, and rutabaga. Yeah. I will say that our rutabaga was twice as much as I was expecting to have.
Damn.
So we're too much
rutabaga.
We got 2 bits of rutabaga encryption, and I'm pretty happy with it. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of all of that. It's some obligation. because we've covered 3 seasons of this.
Mm-hmm.
Some excitement because I just want to see how this fucking thing ends.
Sure.
And some of it is, it's a pretty good show for us.
And sometimes we get that. Like, it is a true fact that when we covered the last season of The Leftovers, by every metric we had 10%. 1 out of every 10 persons watching The Leftovers was listening to our podcast, which was super cool.
Way beyond the normal ratio.
Yeah. So it's not that good, but it's a pleasant surprise. Sam says,
what's his last name?
Anonymous. Maybe Sam E Corp.
Could be.
Not sure if you guys came across this, but when you were talking about Angela possibly being some kind of host or computer, I remembered how in the AllSafe offices, one of the L's was missing, so it looked like it read AI safe. Not sure if this is some kind of hint. The artificial intelligence construct that is Angela is safe. We have received the coded message. The chickens are all in the pots. The eagles have all landed. The AIs are all safe. I can tell there's some wheels turning. Is it for a joke, or is it for a theory?
It's always for a joke. Have we considered that potentially Elliott has a chip in his head with an AI, and that is the third?
No, I have not considered that.
Because there are 2 letters on that wall, and they are AI.
Mm-hmm. There's also SAFE.
Hey, I'm just trying to be as much of a crackpot as the emailer was.
I will say, here's
Sam
without a doubt,
Corp is.
Without a doubt, there's been points in Elliott's life when he's had a chip in his head. I mean, who hasn't eaten a Dorito or
That's true.
a Ruffles?
Please don't diminish my wonderful, beautiful joke.
I was trying to buttress it, frankly. It didn't seem like it was structurally sound, okay?
It's probably fair.
Let's move on to Heather S.
Please.
Who is the third? My initial thought was the viewer friend, but they used the pronoun he, which is making me question. It seems like in this day and age, pronouns are important. Wondering what your theories might be.
Yeah, but you make a case for blurring of pronouns in this show.
Yeah, and also, so that's with individual people. I don't know how I would feel as an audience if I was reduced to a he. Like, it seems like 50% of the audience would be kind of like, hey, about that. If not more. So that's I forgot to talk about that as part of the me not liking the audience theory, because that does seem careless, and not in the sense of like, oh, White Rose is pretending to be this masculine secretary of whatever cyber defense in China kind of way. It's more of just kind of like, oh yeah, it's everybody's he, whatever. So I don't know. I think we covered the theories though for you, Heather.
Yep.
Paul from Royal Oak, Michigan. In the preview for season 4 and in episode 1, you both refer to Sam Esmail and Homeland. I know this is a nitpick, and I apologize in advance, but it had nothing to do with that train wreck that was Homeland. Obviously, you guys are referencing Homecoming.
Yeah. I'm
sorry if this comes across as dickish, but please know I mean it in the best possible way, and I'm a huge fan of you guys. Oh, you didn't even have to. You didn't have to excuse it, man. I just. Did you catch that I was making that mistake and just it amused you to let me?
No, I think I made the mistake.
Oh, did you
as well?
too?
Yeah. It's tough because they're such fucking generic names.
Yeah, and I'm primed to kind of get that shit backward. Like I somehow stumbled across a 1-star iTunes review that guy was really upset with me not telling Angela and Darlene apart. Like, I just get their names confused. I don't get the characters confused.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
So, thank you for the correction, Paul, because people definitely should check out Homecoming. It's one of the few 30-minute dramas I've ever seen, too. Like, that's usually a comedy staple. But, it's fun to see them people playing with the format. This year has been interesting because there's been several shows that have, like, 10-minute episodes or 15-minute episodes, minisodes they're calling them. It's interesting to see people play with the formats of what television can and can't be.
But that show Homeworld has like Bobby Cannavale in it too, and that's no joke. I intentionally fucked up the name. Homecoming has Bobby Cannavale in it.
Yeah,
and he plays a similarly deranged and weird character. It's a really good show.
Yeah, I saw the first half of the first season on your recommendation, and I stopped because I had lack of time. I'm definitely, when I hear like rumors that season 2 is upon us, I'll definitely watch it. So, because I would love to get on the ground floor of season 2. That's all the feedback we've got. If you'd like to send us more, please send it to robot@baldmove.com. I mean, frankly, we could use all the help we can get with this, the understanding these theories and all that. And I didn't get to everyone's theory because, like I said, it's just impossible to read them all. Try to find the ones that are best. It's the ones that we have time to fit. But I do appreciate and I do read everyone's feedback. Send it again, robot@baldmove.com. Forums.baldmove.com is where you can get in on a discussion with fellow fans. If you want to impress people, internet people, with your knowledge and win some valuable and coveted internet points, do it there. And you can follow along with us on all the social medias @baldmove. We'll see when this third persona pays off, Jim. We'll do it next week, perhaps. Until then, I'm your host, A.Ron.
And I'm Jim.
See ya.